nominated in Grammys as well. There is a special tie, as you mentioned, between Zakir, Hussain and you, and there were recordings that were listed as landmark recordings between yourself and Zakir Hussain ji.
Met the sitarist Krishna Bhatt, started working with him, with Zakir Hussain, later HariPrasad Chaurasia, and so many others. So it's been a very, now like a 40-year journey of being a saxophonist and a composer, trying to write music that would be fun for my Western musician friends to play and my Indian musician friends to play.
Hey everyone, we have the leading jazz musician George Brooks right here with us in South Bay for a wonderful concert for Enacte Arts, a non-profit organization that promotes theatrical productions. Welcome, sir, to Yo India TV with me, Jasleen, Khanuja. And how's the feel?
Oh, it feels great to be here. I really support the work that Enacte is doing, and it's always a pleasure to perform. We have some incredible musicians with us, South India, North India, India via the UK, India via the US. So we have a great team. We're looking forward to performing.
So you're very well known for being a fusion-based musician. You are expert in saxophone. You are a maestro in Indo-American fusion, and jazz itself has origination from Africa, Jamaica, and a lot of other mixes, as I understand. So tell us a little more about how this all started, and where do you think you are now?
Well, I started playing the saxophone as a very little child, about 10 years old. Was not from a musical family, so I was exposed to whatever the pop music of my childhood was. And that was things like the Beatles. But when I got a little older, I started listening to jazz, American jazz, great artists like John Coltrane and Charlie Parker, McCoy Tyner. And then when I got a little bit older, I started listening to Indian classical music. And nobody I knew, I didn't know any people from India at that time. I didn't know any musicians from India. But I started listening a lot to all the great masters, HariPrasad Chaurasia and Bhimsen Joshi. And then later I had the good fortune of coming to California, meeting Zakir Hussain, meeting the great American musician Terry Riley, who was blending these elements. And then, of course, my Guruji, Pandit Pranath, who was an Indian classical vocalist. I went to India. I lived there for a year studying with my wife, who brought me there, and came back, met the sitarist Krishna Bhatt, started working with him, with Zakir Hussain, later HariPrasad Chaurasia, and so many others. So it's been a very, now like a 40-year journey of being a saxophonist and a composer, trying to write music that would be fun for my Western musician friends to play and my Indian musician friends to play.
Wonderful, and you have taken it to a different level, to a different height, and I know you were nominated in Grammys as well. There is a special tie, as you mentioned, between Zakir Hussain and you, and there were recordings that were listed as landmark recordings between yourself and Zakir Hussain ji. So tell us a little more about your association.
Well, I was very fortunate that early on, actually, the sitarist I was working with, Krishna Bhatt, introduced me to Zakir Bhai when I was working on my first recording. And Zakir not only performed on the record, but then released it on his record label, Moment Records. And then we made a subsequent album. And he also really was responsible kind of for introducing me as a performing artist in India. And that was back in 2000.
Hey everyone, Mahesh and Pragati from Saratoga are here with us for Enacte event, and we just had a very wonderful jazz concert with George Brooks. How was your experience?
Oh my gosh, it was such a sublime evening, and I could have listened to him all night long. I know it's a late night already, but I have been a huge fan of George Brooks, so it was a treat for me to listen to him live.
And Mahesh, you're yourself a musician, so going to the intricacies, what was the best part?
Like the second composition that he played, Rag Charukeshi, is quite a favorite of mine. And to see it being performed in the jazz, which is something I have not seen before, by the way. So to have such great artists, the one, both the percussionists and the violinist, Radhika, and the pianist from India.
Yeah.
And I think it's incredible that we are able to have such artists.
Absolutely. Keep enjoying and keep supporting non-profit organizations like Enacte and great musicians and bands like George Brooks.
Yes.
It was great speaking with you.
And this next piece is a new, not yet recorded composition. It doesn't even really have a name, but backstage I was being interviewed by Yo India TV, and they asked me to name my favorite raga, which I told them was a little bit like naming which one of my children was my favorite. I couldn't do it. But I did tell them that I was particularly fond of Rag Charukeshi, and this is a composition based in Rag Charukeshi.
So since you have systematically learned Indian classical music, as you mentioned, you've been to India and you got good exposure on Indian music, which is your favorite raga?
I don't know that's kind of like which one of your children is your favorite. But there are certain ragas that really lend themselves to crossover type performances. Rag Charukeshi is one, and actually you'll hear some of that this evening. I really enjoy Rag Puriya Vaneshri. It's a very intriguing raga from, I think, both a Western and an Indian point of view. You know, those of us who were raised in a harmonic world, the kind of tensions that exist built into a raga like that are very, very intriguing to our ear. Each one has its own very special fragrance and beauty. So,
In a proper jazz scenario, many people like to do break dance.
well, that doesn't. That's not really a jazz thing. That comes much later out of the kind of a popular music and hip hop
Yes.
and. I mean, back early in the more traditional jazz, tap dancing was a big part of the jazz scene. And when I was younger, I used to play with some people who were much older than I was, jazz musicians who were raised, kind of as classic jazz musicians. And we would often, or sometimes, perform with tap dancers. So that was a part of that. And then going back, swing dancing was a big part of jazz musicians like Duke Ellington. And actually, jazz kind of came up as a popular and a dance music, but not hip-hop. That was much later.
That was much later.
Yeah.
So, what are the general prop-ups you have in your concerts?
In these kind of crossover context, we've performed with Kathak dancers. I just did a kind of a fusion piece in Chicago with a sort of a modern Bharatnatyam production. We've done some Lavani as well, which is a Maharashtrian kind of a form.
The special sari tied, in a particular way,
Yeah.
It's a special drape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's got a kind of theatrical element. But most of what we do is just is focused on the music.
So, George, how do you keep up your energy in the concerts?
The music gives me energy. The great musicians I'm performing with all kind of feed me, as well as the audience. The audience is a big part of what we do. So if we're giving them energy and they're giving it back, that really inspires us. So a good audience is quite important for what we do.
And is there a particular kind of jazz you perform, or it's a free jazz?
No, I'd say the music that we perform is essentially music that I compose. All the music are my compositions and one composition of Selva Ganesh. So it is music that, comes from my study of jazz and my study of Indian music and my search for inspiration. So that's what we focus on.
Wonderful. So you are also an educator, and I've heard about your association with UC Santa Cruz and UC Berkeley. So what's your message to the viewers who are taking inspiration from George Brooks as a brand who has taken Indian classical and jazz fusion to a different level?
Well, I don't think of myself as a brand, but what I would say for young musicians, I'd say follow your heart, follow your path. If something brings you inspiration, follow it as deeply as possible. And if you are looking to work with music from other cultures, I'd say, develop relationships with artists from those cultures. I think that's been the most rewarding thing for me, are the friendships I've developed, the people who've been mentors to me, the younger people I've been able to mentor. I think that's really important. Exchanging information, learning as much as you can about all the world's musical cultures, because there are so many. They're all so deep. They all come from really important places. So, learn your own history, learn the history of the people you're going to collaborate with, and try to find kind of a spark of truth that you want to express. How can you express yourself as an artist? What do you want to say? I want to say people should be together, people should respect each other, people should love each other, they should look for the commonalities rather than the differences. So if I can express some of that in my music, I feel like I've done well.
Absolutely, and music traverses all boundaries, and jazz in particular. So thank you so much for wonderful efforts and for bringing music closer to our hearts and bringing people worldwide closer to each other via your fantastic music. Thank you so much, George.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Hello, everybody. I'm George Brooks. You can watch me on Yo India TV.
Hey everyone, Sujata from Cupertino is right here with us at Enacte Events Jazz Concert. And how did you like it?
It was sublime. It was really, really beautiful. Yeah.
What was the best piece you liked?
I think the last piece, what they finished with, I also enjoyed the Ghatam piece, where they riffed with us, with the audience. That was fun.
Have you heard George Brooks before?
Yes, with Shakti. Absolutely.
So you're a long-time fan.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Wonderful. Keep enjoying.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all the hard work of the people who worked to get this evening together so that all of us could have fun. I'm going to start with my partner in crime, the managing director of Enacte Arts, Geeta Rai. She has been battling AB5 performance visas for people who come from India that didn't come through, managing the finances of the evening, all this really creative, fabulous stuff that people really like to do. So, big round of applause to Geeta for keeping us sane.
Hey everyone, we have the managing director of Enacte, Geeta Rai, right here with us at the jazz concert with Josh Brooks. Welcome to Your India TV, and it's a wonderful concert that we just had. How did you conceptualize bringing in a jazz fusion to Bay Area?
Well, we have an actor who knows George Brooks really well. And originally we were going to have a show called Bombay Jazz, which we were going to get from India, and it's about the influence of jazz on Hindi music. Due to some unavoidable circumstances, we couldn't bring that show, and we really wanted to go with a jazz theme, as is the theme of our gala, All That Jazz. And who better than George Brooks, who is native to California, to the Bay Area. He lives in Berkeley, and he's a world-renowned artist. He's played, he's a great artist in his own right, and played with the stalwarts like Ravi Shankar and other great artists from India. So we thought of bringing him to keep up with the theme of our evening today.
That's wonderful. So, who are your target audience from Enacte perspective, and what's your pitch to them?
Well, we are really asking for anyone that loves the arts, that supports the arts, that wants to see arts permeate into the community. And that's who we're asking to come out and support tonight. Enacte is a great platform for upcoming artists to show their skills, to hone their skills. And it is a launching pad for people to come here, do their stuff, and go on to do bigger things. So we're really looking for patrons of the arts who want to help out.
Wonderful, and thank you very much.
Thank you.